In 1914, C.W. Post, the visionary mind behind the booming breakfast cereal industry, has died. For his heartbroken daughter Marjorie, inheriting his empire will make her the richest woman in America. But C.W. Post's will tells a very different story, leaving half of his shares in the company to his second wife.
Mother told me that the common stocks would be mine. She told me.
Then there should be written proof.
But I don't know where that is.
Now, Marjorie finds herself in a desperate search
Nothing.
for evidence to support her claim, or risk losing control of the company she has been raised to run. In 1891, a 37-year-old Illinois businessman has moved with his wife and young daughter to Fort Worth, Texas, gambling everything they have to try and achieve his American dream. His name is Charles William Post.
C.W. Post was this dynamic dreamer. He was an entrepreneur and an avid experimenter.
As the country expands and the economy booms, Post sees an opportunity to make his fortune with an ambitious real estate development, building an entire town from the ground up.
This is our future.
You're gonna be great.
Thank you.
But after working tirelessly for months to get the project off the ground, a major investor backs out, leaving Post with nowhere to turn and putting him on the brink of bankruptcy. The failure proves to be more than Post can handle, and soon he suffers a nervous breakdown.
C.W. Post is in a state of near collapse. Both his body and his nervous system were wrecked. To hear his wife Ella describe it, he was near the end of mortals.
Desperate for help, Post's wife Ella brings him to Michigan, where C.W. is admitted to the Battle Creek Sanitarium.
In this time period, people suffering from a whole host of maladies came to the Battle Creek Sanitarium in order to be cured. It was one of the many spa-like places that promised to get people well.
The sanitarium is run by Dr. John Kellogg,
Everyone follow me. Arms out
who has developed an innovative approach to wellness,
and up. Well done.
offering treatments such as electric sunlight baths, cold water plunges, a device called the slap machine, and yogurt enemas.
A lot of the remedies prescribed by the Battle Creek Sanitarium were trying to solve some real problems, and people were willing to try new things.
The sanitarium also requires daily exercise, bans alcohol and caffeine, and demands a strict vegetarian diet, heavy in high-fiber foods that Dr. Kellogg has developed himself. For breakfast, patients are served a crunchy mixture of small baked chunks of unsweetened biscuits, which Kellogg calls granola. And instead of coffee or tea, they drink caramel coffee, a grain-based, caffeine-free coffee substitute. For Post, who had long had an interest in health and abstained from both alcohol and caffeine, the food is an inspiration. After several months in the sanitarium, CW decides to remain in Battle Creek with his family. And with his health finally restored, he is determined to build a new business.
As a patient at the Kellogg Sanitarium, CW Post saw this new food that Dr. Kellogg is serving the patients. And he thinks, hey, this could really be something.
First, Post develops his own coffee substitute. He calls it Postum.
Postum is a really interesting beverage. It's essentially whole grain wheat that is toasted and processed with just a little bit of molasses, and then it's brewed like coffee would be brewed.
Post markets his product aggressively, with ads and promotional giveaways. And after 2 years, Postum is a nationwide success, with sales in excess of $250,000, or $9 million today. Post then plows his profits into developing a new product, a breakfast cereal.
At this point, a morning meal, a breakfast meal, was really not something that was known to Americans. It was not part of the culture. If anything, you ate leftovers from the night before, which left a huge opportunity if someone could come in and figure out how to make it a huge business.
In Post's opinion, Dr. Kellogg's granola was a good idea, with the wrong execution. And after countless hours in the kitchen, he has created a cereal that he believes is superior. Small, crunchy nuggets with a hint of sweetness, made from toasted barley, wheat, and molasses. Believing that glucose, known as grape sugar, forms during the cereal's baking process, Post names his creation Grape Nuts. Just as he'd done with Postum, CW floods newspapers and magazines with ads that catch the reader's attention.
Post is one of the early adopters of more visual advertising. He's got really beautiful illustrations of products and, fresh-faced young women and children consuming them.
And after Post's ads catch your eye, they make some amazing claims.
CW Post would put in his ad, it makes your blood red, it takes care of brain fog. He started to claim that these things cured cancer and impotence. I mean, if there was something he thought would sell it, he claimed it. Didn't matter. He would have doctors come in and endorse these claims. There were no rules and there were no laws. And boy, did it work.
Sales for Grape Nuts exceed even Post's expectations, soon doubling those of Postum. Post continues to invest his profits back into the company, expanding production and warehouse facilities and increasing his ad budget as more and more Americans come to associate breakfast with CW Post.
CW Post, in bringing cereal to the American consumer, makes breakfast readily available, affordable, and it's a healthy, convenient option. This changes the entire American diet.
But for Post, business success is only part of his plan. He also intends to give back.
Central to the Post family values was this core belief that with great wealth comes great responsibility.
To give his adopted home big city prestige, Post constructs a 6-story office building and a hotel in downtown Battle Creek. And to provide his workers with a sense of pride and security, he builds a state-of-the-art factory compound called the White City that looks and feels more like a college campus. Right next to it, he constructs an entire neighborhood of homes for his employees, selling them at cost with no interest.
CW Post thought it was more effective and more efficient to pay his employees well and see to their needs so that there would not be a reason to form a labor union. To him, unions were associated with socialism and protests and strikes, which were quite violent at that time. And so the way to avoid union involvement is to make sure that your employees are relatively happy and well paid.
But as CW Post's legend grows, not everyone in Battle Creek is celebrating. Dr. Kellogg's younger brother, William, who has helped to develop many of the Sanitarium's recipes, believes CW Post is a fraud.
All of a sudden, CW Post comes out with Postum and then Grape Nuts. And this drives William Kellogg crazy because there's suspicion Post stole Kellogg's recipes.
William Kellogg pleads with his brother to start nationally marketing their products.
I'll do everything. I'll oversee everything. You won't have to lift a finger.
No. That's the end of it.
But Dr. Kellogg refuses.
His brother is a doctor, and you know, the thing is, the ethics of physicians at the time, doctors didn't advertise, so he was against it, and it frustrated William Kellogg.
With no real competitors, CW Post's business continues to grow. But at the same time, his single-minded pursuit of success and his continued bouts with moodiness and depression are taking a toll on his marriage.
Is Budge upstairs?
She's napping.
I'll go check on her.
Good day at work?
Yeah, I'm really tired. Good night, dear.
Oh, aren't you hungry? It's still warm.
No, I couldn't.
CW Post was passionate about growing the Post food empire, and he was often gone, and his marriage became strained and distant.
And while CW's bond with Ella has weakened, his connection to his only child, Marjorie, whom he calls Budge, has grown stronger.
Marjorie would help the workers rake the wheat, and she would experiment with tasting early batches of the food. She would glue the boxes with her father. She would put the labels on. So really from its inception, Marjorie was an integral member of this Post empire, and she loved nothing more than to work with her father.
Once she turns 10, CW starts bringing Marjorie with him on business trips and to important meetings.
She would come to board meetings and just sit and listen and watch. And after the board meetings, he would say to her, "Now, what were the most important points that we talked about? Would you agree with the decisions that we made? Would you have done something different?" So he treated her as an adult, even as a child.
The relationship instills a confidence in Marjorie that stays with her as she grows into adulthood. But after Marjorie leaves home to attend finishing school in Washington, D.C., it leaves a hole in CW's life. With his marriage to Ella continuing to deteriorate, he finally demands a divorce, shocking all of Battle Creek, and putting a strain on his relationship with his daughter Marjorie. But then, things get worse. When Post falls in love with his young assistant, Lila Young.
Lila is less than half his age. She's actually only 10 years older than Marjorie. But it is clear that there is this attraction.
C.W. Post keeps the relationship a secret from Marjorie until she comes home for a visit.
Budgie, tonight we're celebrating. I have some exciting news.
What is it?
Layla and I are engaged.
The revelation is more than Marjorie can bear.
I can't talk to you anymore.
Budgie. Budgie.
Marjorie was shocked. For C.W. Post to so quickly remarry, it shattered her, and she was furious.
Despite Marjorie's disapproval, C.W. Post and Lila Young are married on November 16th, 1904.
The relationship between Marjorie and Lila has all the makings of a Disney horror story between the stepmother and stepdaughter. These two did not get along. And Marjorie came to believe that Lila had been there from the beginning to usurp her mother's role and to win C.W. And so it was a very acrimonious relationship.
With the echoes of C.W.'s decision still reverberating, barely a year later, Marjorie makes a shocking decision of her own, marrying a blue-blooded Connecticut lawyer named Edward Close.
Ed Close was from an old East Coast family and this elite Northeastern circle. It was love at first sight. He proposed to Marjorie 4 days after he met her.
The couple settles into a beautiful mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, built for them by C.W. as a wedding gift, helping to heal his rift with Marjorie. But while family peace seems to have been restored, C.W. Post soon faces an unexpected challenge on the business front. A new competitor with a popular new breakfast cereal, Kellogg's. For years, C.W. Post has had the breakfast cereal market almost entirely to himself.
You guys take a break in about 30 minutes, okay?
But after years of frustration, William Kellogg has broken through, developing a process that creates what he calls a cornflake.
William Kellogg creates one of the great cereal bases of all time, creates cornflakes, by which 1 million other cereals have been born and inspired by.
After first selling the flakes by mail order through the Sanitarium, the younger Kellogg has now broken away from his physician brother, forming the Kellogg Cereal Company and taking on the man he believes stole the Kellogg's recipes.
William Kellogg definitely felt Post had stolen his idea. But you know, ideas are not patents, and it's usually the execution of the idea that actually works.
Post dismisses Kellogg's accusations and then sets out to beat him at his own game. He creates Post Toasties, which quickly become his company's top seller, generating a profit of $2.1 million in just 1 year, the equivalent of over $70 million today. And then he comes up with a plan to make sure Kellogg's can't keep up.
I need to talk to the Lauhoff brothers.
CW contacts the Lauhoff brothers, the sole manufacturer of the machine used to produce cornflakes. He places a massive order, allowing him to expand production and giving him exclusive rights to the patented equipment. The move gives CW a leg up in what will become known as the Cereal Wars. But while tensions rise in Battle Creek, in the meantime, Marjorie's exciting new life in Connecticut seems like a fairy tale. A new mother to daughters Adelaide and Eleanor, she is a rising presence in East Coast society.
How do I look?
Shoulders back for me.
And in the new playground for the rich that has sprouted up on Florida's Atlantic coast, Palm Beach.
All it was mangroves and swamps, and you could only get there by boat. Henry Flagler developed Palm Beach and built a railroad to get there. And then the wealthy began to come.
The roads were unpaved. There was not nightlife. There were not restaurants. There was not shopping. Marjorie saw Palm Beach as a place where she could make her mark.
Marjorie and Ed begin wintering in Palm Beach in 1909, returning annually with their children. Marjorie prefers its informality to Greenwich. And as the years pass, she becomes a fixture on the winter social scene. But as Marjorie is finding her footing and spreading her wings, her father is losing his grip. Now, close to a decade into the cereal wars, CW's ongoing battles with competitors like Kellogg's have taken up more and more of his time, and his health has taken a turn for the worse. Now living with Lila in Santa Barbara, California, the stomach pains that have afflicted him throughout his adult life return with a vengeance.
CW Post had been in and out of ill health for decades. And when his stomach troubles return, he has to face the fact that the entire empire he has built that exists to promote and maintain good health has failed him. In spite of his lifestyle, in spite of the new foods he has invented that purport to cure all manner of ailments, he has this chronic stomach problem that he believed to be stomach cancer that is not going away. It crushed him. He was not willing to watch his body fail, to watch his health decline when he had built an entire empire on living healthily.
Plunged into despair, fearful of suffering. On May 9th, 1914, at the age of 56, CW Post chooses to take his own life.
Close residence, this is Marjorie speaking. And how is he? When did it happen? Thank you for informing me.
Marjorie Post was completely devastated when her father committed suicide. It was totally unexpected.
The shocking news makes headlines nationwide. And in Battle Creek, thousands turn out to bid farewell to C.W. Post.
C.W. Post's funeral in Battle Creek was like a state funeral. The entire town was in mourning.
Over 1,000 Postum employees formed the Honor Guard, paying tribute to the man who changed not only their city, but the American way of life. Having already lost her mother 2 years before, this loss hits Marjorie even harder.
It was the great tragedy of Marjorie's entire life. Her father was her hero, he was her role model, he was her idol, and for him to end his own life in this way, it was gutting.
Post leaves an estate of $22 million, the equivalent of $650 million today. Overnight, the press dubs Marjorie America's richest woman. But when the details of her father's will are revealed to the family, it tells a very different story.
For Marjorie, C.W.'s suicide was heartbreak number 1. The reading of the will was heartbreak number 2.
Mother told me it was agreed upon that the common stocks would be mine. She told me.
Then there should be written proof.
I don't know where that is.
Well, then we better start looking.
Her mother and father had told her since she was a girl that when they passed away, the company was hers. Marjorie did not expect her beloved father to leave half the shares of his company to Lila, whom Marjorie called that woman.
As rumors fly, the dispute becomes a national scandal. While Marjorie, her husband Ed, and her legal team dig through years of her father's files, searching for proof of her claim.
It had been Marjorie's belief since childhood that she would be the sole heir to her family's company.
Nothing, 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 nothing.
And she was not going to sit back and allow Lila to get half of these shares.
Then, after weeks of searching, a break.
Finally, Ed Close found the original document that was hashed out between Marjorie's mother and Marjorie's father.
That looks like her writing to me.
And that said very explicitly that Marjorie was to be the sole inheritor of the family company.
Confronted with irrefutable proof, Post's widow, Lila, agrees to withdraw her claim to any shares in the company.
Marjorie gets all of the family shares in exchange for Lila getting a $6 million cash settlement and generous real estate holdings.
Marjorie is granted majority ownership of the Postum cereal company. But that ownership has limits. When Postum's board of directors meets at the company's New York City offices, Marjorie must take a back seat.
Ed. Good luck.
Marjorie is not allowed to sit on the board of directors because she's a woman. So it is her husband, Ed Close, who takes the family seat on the board of directors.
Marjorie knows the time isn't right to challenge the establishment, but her voice will not be silenced.
Marjorie finds ways to exert her authority. behind the scenes so members of the board respect and listen to Marjorie's input. So she is able to have a voice while not necessarily having a seat at the table.
But the excitement that comes with Marjorie's new role is soon overshadowed when in April of 1917, the United States enters World War I. At the age of 35, Ed is drafted and sent overseas to France. And Marjorie is determined to do her part for the Allied cause as well. At a cost of over $75,000, close to $2 million today, Marjorie funds an army hospital in France. It is the beginning of a lifetime of philanthropy.
Marjorie said, "There are others better off than I, but the difference is I do more with mine. I put it to work."
The war also raises her profile at Postum, where she takes a more active role, encouraging efforts to adapt to wartime supply issues that keep Postum profitable throughout the conflict. At war's end, Ed Close returns home, but something has changed.
Marjorie, please.
With a newfound sense of purpose in her life, Marjorie realizes the bond she once felt with Ed has become strained.
It became clear they had grown apart. They didn't have this warmth between them.
Now, Marjorie knows to live the life she wants, she needs to move on.
When Marjorie asked Ed Close for a divorce, this was an incredibly shocking thing. But Marjorie had grown up watching her parents' strained, distant relationship, so she was willing to brave society's scrutiny and the scandal of divorce in order to say, hey, this is not working anymore.
Though the failure of her marriage is devastating, Marjorie, who gets full custody of her daughters, is determined to find love again. And within a year, she does.
I do.
Marrying successful investment banker E.F. Hutton.
E.F. Hutton is a dashing, handsome financier. Like Marjorie, he had Midwestern roots and had grown a brokerage firm into one of the most successful firms on Wall Street. And by all accounts, it was this magnetic attraction and love at first sight.
Now 33, Marjorie sees marriage to the 45-year-old Hutton as a new start. The couple builds a lavish Long Island estate. And in 1923, Marjorie expands her family, welcoming a baby girl, Nedinia Marjorie Hutton, known as Dina. And as they build their new life together, the glamorous couple also have much bigger plans in store for Postum. As Marjorie looks to transform her father's company into a corporate giant. Since its founding, the Postum cereal company had been focused on one thing: providing Americans with a healthy breakfast. Producing just 3 products, Postum, Grape Nuts, and Post Toasties, had made C.W. Post a rich man. Though she is still not able to sit on the board, with E.F. Hutton now by her side, Marjorie has little doubt the time is right to expand the company's ambitions and its profits.
E.F. Hutton comes to this marriage with business acumen and success of his own and becomes chairman of the board of directors of Marjorie's company.
Their first act is to move the company's headquarters from Battle Creek to New York City, and then take Postum public.
And they really begin to look to other brands with this critical component being we are going to make food more convenient, more readily accessible to Americans.
With the influx of capital from the stock sale, the Postum cereal company goes on a buying binge, snapping up companies such as Jell-O, Minute Tapioca, Hellman's Mayonnaise, and Maxwell House Coffee.
Marjorie felt if the brand helps the American family to eat or run a household more efficiently in an affordable, safe, healthy way, then that was going to be part of their business portfolio.
But what ultimately turns out to be Postum's most important purchase is a small frozen food company founded by Clarence Birdseye.
What Birdseye was doing was revolutionary. Birdseye had the technology to freeze vegetables, fruit, poultry, meat, but he couldn't distribute the food in any sort of meaningful way. So he needed a bigger operation in order to actually grow this business.
Marjorie Post knew that Birdseye Frozen Foods would really help women in their daily lives.
The acquisition of Birdseye spurs an explosion of sales of home refrigerators and freezers across the country. The purchase makes Postum the nation's largest food conglomerate. And to mark its new status, the company takes on a new name, General Foods, and boasts a value more than double what it had been under C.W. Post. Marjorie and E.F. Hutton become even more prominent in New York society, holding court at their 3 spectacular homes. But now, Marjorie is determined to cement her status, building a palace for the ages in Palm Beach called Mar-a-Lago.
It's called Mar-a-Lago, meaning sea to lake. The property begins on the Atlantic Ocean and runs all the way across the island to Lake Worth.
The massive mansion, built by famed architect Marion Sims Wyeth and decorated by Broadway set designer Joseph Urban, takes 4 years to build at a cost of $7 million, or $109 million in today's money. When completed, it contains 58 bedrooms, 33 bathrooms, 12 fireplaces, and even 3 bomb shelters.
Mar-a-Lago is absolutely spectacular. The whole place is spectacular. It's like going into a wonderland. The place is magnificent.
That house astonished people with its immensity, with its grandeur, and with its undeniable beauty. It became the place to see and be seen.
Parties at Mar-a-Lago become instantly legendary, a reflection of Marjorie's unique personality.
Marjorie would fly guests down on her private jet to Palm Beach, where square dancing is the night's entertainment. She got all of Palm Beach square dancing.
If you go to Marjorie Post's party, you never know whether you're talking to a Supreme Court justice or her hairdresser. So she really, really enjoyed people for who they were.
As the 1920s draw to a close, Marjorie seems to have it all. And though the U.S. stock market crash in October of 1929 decimates hundreds of banks, thousands of businesses, and countless lives, General Foods manages to weather the storm.
While the rest of America is struggling in the depths of the Great Depression, Marjorie's company is continuing to soar, and a huge part of that is due to Birds Eye Frozen Foods.
Frozen foods allow Americans on a tight budget to keep good food on the table in tough times, while helping to keep General Foods firmly in the black. But for Marjorie, her company's success only serves as a reminder of those in need.
During the Great Depression, Marjorie is no longer hosting lavish parties. She opens a soup kitchen in Hell's Kitchen, and her husband, E.F. Hutton, opens one for men downtown.
The Marjorie Post Hutton food kitchens provide hot meals to thousands of needy New Yorkers every day, while giving desperately needed jobs to the unemployed.
She hires men who are out of work, and she insists that they put on white coats and they shave, and they were her waiters.
But while in public, Marjorie continues to shine. At home, a potentially destructive rift is growing. As Marjorie has become increasingly suspicious of Hutton's behavior. Worried he is being unfaithful, she has devised a plan to find out.
When Marjorie sets out to catch E.F. Hutton in his infidelity, she asked E.F. Hutton's valet to sprinkle his bedroom floor with talcum powder. And they found the woman's pair of footprints.
Her worst suspicions confirmed. Marjorie is devastated.
Their romance had been the stuff of fairy tales.
I do.
They were wildly in love. It was the great heartbreak of Marjorie's life.
Unwilling to forgive, Marjorie files for divorce.
For Marjorie to now be getting a second divorce, it was a scandal. The newspapers were filled with speculation as to the cause of the divorce and how things would play out, because there was an incredible fortune at stake here.
The contentious divorce leads to Hutton's resignation from General Foods. And now, Marjorie is determined to chart a different course forward for the company.
Gentlemen.
One that will guarantee her voice will be heard.
Tell me, gentlemen, in a word, what is it that our company provides to the American people? Confidence. My father had a gift. He could make anyone believe in something just as wholeheartedly as he did. A gift I like to think he passed on to me.
Marjorie finally steps up and says, "No more of this business of my husband taking the Post family seat at the table." And she takes her own seat on the board of directors.
Let's get started.
Now the first female director at General Foods, Marjorie, the company's largest stockholder, who has helped transform it into one of the nation's most profitable food conglomerates, finally has a public role, and the power that comes with her own seat at the table. But this isn't the only major change in Marjorie's life. Though she had vowed to never marry again, in 1935, Marjorie falls for Joseph Davies, a successful lawyer and rising political figure in Washington, D.C.
Joseph Davies was a Washington insider and close friend of FDR. Marjorie found him to be incredibly interesting.
Within months of their December wedding, Davies is named as America's ambassador to the Soviet Union, where he and Marjorie spend the next year and a half working to improve relations between the two countries.
She really was a diplomat herself. She was able to bring the Russians and the Americans together and create a closer bond politically between the two of them.
Soon after their return, World War II begins. And when America joins the fight in 1941, Marjorie steps up to do her part.
During World War II, Mar-a-Lago becomes a rehabilitation center for convalescing soldiers. And Marjorie gives her yacht to the United States Navy for a lease of $1 a year, and it serves as a convoy ship for the Navy.
At war's end, the couple settle in Washington, D.C., where Marjorie quickly makes her mark amongst the city's power brokers.
Marjorie was not just someone who gave parties. It was really about strategy, and it was about power, and it was about convening the people who were in power and politics.
But as time passes, and Marjorie approaches her 70th year, her increasingly elevated social status is not shared by her husband.
Joe Davies became threatened by Marjorie's power and popularity, and he was becoming increasingly erratic.
For Marjorie, the thought of a third failed marriage is devastating. But she realizes she may not have a choice. In March of 1953, Marjorie and Joseph Davies divorce. Marjorie starts fresh, settling into Hillwood, her new 25,000 square foot Washington, D.C. mansion. And though the idea of remarrying seems unlikely, in 1958, Marjorie takes the plunge for the fourth time with business executive Herbert May.
Marjorie and her daughters believe that Herbert May is her happily ever after. Marjorie and Herb connect as great lovers of the arts, as great philanthropists.
But sadly, it is not to be. After 6 years together, Marjorie discovers May's shocking secret life.
Many people close to Marjorie assumed that she knew Herb May was gay, but she was caught entirely by surprise. Dina Merrill, Marjorie's daughter, said to her mother, "You mean you didn't know he was gay?" And Marjorie said, "Of course I didn't know he was. You mean you did?"
Though she bears May no ill will, the couple divorces in 1964, and Marjorie once again takes back her maiden name.
Some believe that Marjorie had a blind spot when it came to the men that she loved. Each one of her 4 marriages ended in a different way, and it seems like each one gets more shocking. Marjorie said, "I was smart about pretty much everything in life, but I was not smart about men."
But despite her lack of marital success, thanks to the foundation she helped to lay, General Foods continues to grow, acquiring companies like Kool-Aid and Hostess, and introducing Tang. But while her role as Director Emerita at General Foods is mostly ceremonial, Marjorie has become even more active as a philanthropist.
Towards the end of her life, you see Marjorie doing all sorts of good. Some of it was very publicly known, some of it was done without any recognition at all.
Closest to her heart is her ongoing work with military veterans.
Marjorie Post was a patriot, and the returning Vietnam War vets, they were really spurned by a lot of people. She would have beautiful parties for them at Hillwood, where you would see her talking to these wounded GIs.
In Marjorie's final years, she seeks to cement a lasting legacy for perhaps her most treasured asset, Mar-a-Lago.
What Marjorie proposed was to give it to the U.S. government, who should use it as a sort of southern Camp David to host foreign dignitaries. Or it could become a winter residence for a president, she thought.
On September 12, 1973, Marjorie Meriwether Post passes away at her Hillwood estate in Washington, D.C., leaving Mar-a-Lago to the National Park Service. It is just one part of a massive estate worth the equivalent of $1.5 billion today. The bulk of it is divided among her 3 daughters. Adelaide, a successful horse breeder who takes the reins of Marjorie's charitable foundation. Eleanor, a socialite who lives with her 6th husband in Switzerland. And Dina, an actress with numerous film and television credits. And while their inheritance allows them to continue their mother's and grandfather's legacy of philanthropy, neither they or future generations of Posts has ever risen to the same level of public prominence. Mar-a-Lago, however, has become internationally famous. Due to the cost of upkeep, the government returns the property to the family, who ultimately sell it to real estate developer Donald Trump in 1985.
So I've spent a fair amount of time in Mar-a-Lago, which former President Trump restored to its former grandeur and then some.
Trump turns Mar-a-Lago into a private club. And for the time he was president, the Winter White House, fulfilling Marjorie's wish. But ultimately, the Post dynasty lives on through products that still bear the name today, and through the institutions that were enriched through the family's legacy of philanthropy. Built on the foundation of one man's vision of a new American industry.
CW Post really was striving to improve human health and helping everyone achieve a level of wellness that they did not have access to before.
And his daughter's transformation of not only that business, but of the role of women in America, all the while doing it her way.
In spite of the fact that she was one of the wealthiest women in America, Marjorie was always the girl from Battle Creek who had gotten her start in the barn with her father, gluing the boxes of Postum. She always remembered where she came from. She always remembered her humble roots. And she always stayed true to the values that had really been instilled in her as a little girl growing up in the Midwest.